Welcome to the Coffee Talk Podcast. This is intended for informational purposes only and not to be used as a primary basis for investment decisions. Consult your financial professional before making investment decisions. Shannon Ross is a registered representative and MBA of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse Financial offers securities and advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisories Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Shannon is CEO and managing financial partner of Lighthouse Financial. Cambridge and Lighthouse Financial are not affiliated. And now, here's your host, Shannon Ross.
Well, welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. Thank you for joining us today. I have my beautiful co-host, April Todd, with me in the house this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. It's a big week. It's back to school week in most places in the country.
I know. How are your kids doing?
I'm so sad this week. We'll talk about emotional self-awareness. I'm very sad.
Oh,
I'm very sad.
Well, I hope I can cheer you
I'm not one of those parents who send my kids away with a parade and I'm so glad to get you back out of the house.
I don't do
I did do pictures, but I'm not allowed to post them anywhere now that I have a high schooler and she's anti-posting of any picture of herself that she has not touched or filtered.
Of course. She's a teenage
girl. Bless her heart. I know. So
I don't do any pictures. I don't I drove my kid to high school for his first year of being a freshman. I'm like, bye. Usually I get teary or I'm not this year. You're emotional and I'm not, which is completely opposite.
Does not happen often.
No. Well, I was kind of emotional in your car this morning on the way.
We'll talk about that. That's a funny story.
Let's not talk about that.
But it is, back to school for a lot of, thankfully our school district elected no mask, which I was personally thankful for, but I know there's a lot out there that made a different decision.
Masks.
Sure.
Optional.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not a mandate.
Nope, not a mandate.
I think I got most emotional with my littles. So I have, two older and two little, and I have a new middle schooler. So, and then my youngest is a fourth grader. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're even almost out of elementary, which makes me sad. I don't know.
Well, now he's at elementary school all by himself.
Oh, but he is wigged out. He's like, he's never by himself ever.
He's always had his siblings at the same school.
So he's not quite sure. Aww. But, it is what it is.
Well, are the older
they're having a great time. I mean, they did great.
Well, good.
So, they like their teachers. And
that's good.
Like that.
All of them or just your littles?
Pretty much all of them, for the most part.
That's good. My son is not. So the first day of school, how was your day? It was great. It's the first day of high school, and he goes to a high school that is packed. I don't know. I think they're breaking fire code. I am convinced there are too many kids at that school. Yeah. Not really. It shocks me how many kids are there. But he, day 2 and day 3, no.
Well, I have found, and I'm sure all the parents out there, that's day 2 and 3 that, I have to get up every day during the week, early, and I have to pack my lunch early. And, I do a lot of the prep lunch, but they have to do some things. To teach responsibility.
I think mine has gotten to yesterday. He's like, Mom, there are so many kids, passing periods. He's kind of like me. Sure. He doesn't like massive crowds. That's not his gig. And he said getting just to his classes to get through the crowds. He doesn't like that. And he's not getting to see a ton of his friends except for at lunch because it's more kids now. So,
I know.
But he's like, you know what, Mom, it's not as much fun. I'm like, okay, maybe we need to reset expectations. What kind of fun were you expecting?
Well, I wonder for all the parents out there, our kids have been hybrid for the last really 2 school years. Yes. So they were not used to the full-blown schedule and all the kids together. They've got a little used to the differences that COVID brought. And they adapted. I think all of our kids out there have adapted very well. And so now they're thankfully getting able back to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah. Well, I think it feels pretty dang normal.
It does. But it's interesting, though. I know.
Whatever.
This is a little funny, so I'll share it. But my daughter, who's a sophomore this year, she walks out in her first day outfit on her way for a friend to pick her up, and it was zooming through the kitchen, and I'm like, oh, no, you wait a second. And she had a shirt that only I can describe as a corset. It wasn't really qualified as a shirt, in my opinion. So I was trying to pick my battles because it's 7:30 in the morning. She's about to go out. And I'm like, oh, that's not happening. No. And she's like, she starts ranting and raving and proving her point, whatever. I'm like, okay, I hope you get dress coded. That's what I'm praying all day for. Okay. So she didn't.
She didn't get dress coded?
She did not get dress coded. So, but I did tell her, I did go down to her room that day and I stole the shirt. And I told her that I took it and that will never be worn again. So...
Okay, now I'm going to have to
Mom.
see this shirt because I'm just
I actually
this.
tried it on over my shirt to show her how ridiculous it looked. So, which she did get a kick out of.
Well,
So that is the week back.
yeah. So no sanity spins for us
No,
because it's been back to
sad
school.
week. I know.
Or at least I don't have any sanity spins, do you?
I don't either.
No.
I have no life right now. So, mwah. So,
Give me a river.
but what we are tackling today
Yeah.
is we're going to finish self-perception today. We're in this program of emotional intelligence for the last 2 weeks.
Does my breakdown, my mental breakdown this morning have to do with self-perception?
Well, yes, because actually we're going to talk about triggers this morning. And on the way to the show this morning,
Oh, man.
there was a trigger hit and lots of F words shared.
Oh, my. You just sold me
I
out.
didn't say which F word. It could have been frick.
Fluff.
Fluff.
In my
fluffing
house, fluffing morning. I cannot believe you just did that.
Hence,
Accurate as it may
triggers
be.
and emotional self-awareness.
Yes.
So that will actually be kind of funny throughout the show of sharing a very real example that is
yes,
only about
that's what she
30
does to her
minutes
best
old.
friend on Copy Talk. But that's what I'll share. I'm an open book. I'm happy to
Sure,
talk
I
about
know.
my morning.
Absolutely. So we're tackling the first quadrant, kind of the first composite category of EQ. We started last week with self-regard, and that was a big one. It hit a little close to home. You know, all of us have different levels of self-regard, which is kind of what we think about ourselves, what we think about our self-worth, what we think about ourselves when we're alone, kind of alone with our thoughts. And those who are going through different times of change or tragedy might just naturally have lower self-regard.
Right.
And just we gave some tips from last week's show of how to change that, what to do.
Yeah.
And I love that some of the listeners who have given us feedback are putting a plan in place. You know, no one loves to feel bad about themselves or in a low self-worth space.
Right.
And again, that's why we share this on the show, not to give someone a constant list to work on. We don't want you to always feel like, oh my gosh, I have one more thing to do. That's not what this is
Well,
about.
because not everybody's a list maker. Like
Yes,
someone
not
we know and
everyone
love.
is. And we'll talk about lists today because that's part of the next skill we're going to talk about. But it's a way for people to recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
We want people to, and that's why we named the show last week and this week is the Mirror Mirror on the Wall Continued.
Oh, is
Because
that?
it
I didn't
is.
even know the title yet for today.
It is
Nice.
because, again, we're trying to provide a mirror so that you don't have to just keep ignoring the same old things and expecting different things to result or happen or change. And so we want to equip those who listen with practical ways that they can put some of the stuff that they hear in practice in their normal everyday life. So,
Well, and just because I had taken mine and because obviously we're this first composite or
Sure.
I know that we're calling it different things, but it was actually liberating for me to put a plan in place. Like I'm not list driven like you are. Or like my
anytime I
father.
give you a list, it's lost
My
within like
father-
an hour.
Well, let's be real. It just I make the list up here, and then it really is going out. But my dad is list driven, Mr. Bob. But it was liberating because it was so eye opening to me after I got my results that I was excited to know that I could do something. So for those listeners who think, yeah, oh my God, another plan. All I hear you people say is make a plan, make a list. And I know that can be, you said it very well. It can be overwhelming, but for me, and while that can typically overwhelm me, for me, it was okay. Like it felt like a step towards freedom in an area that I didn't even notice I was so stuck in because I was so
it gave you a
stuck.
language for it.
It gave me,
which
I
thought
could
was a great
articulate
point.
it. And the plan, which I have already jumped on, which I'm already doing, my 2 steps out of my plan, I'm already in. And already I am noticing, I'm feeling empowered that, okay, I can do this and I want to change these things.
Yeah.
And it's actually more freeing than you would think it would be, maybe.
I like that. It encourages people.
Yeah.
Because to look self-introspectively, it's not the
I don't
most
like
fun adventure.
pain.
Yeah. And no one really wants to, I mean, it's easier to keep the blinders up, right? It's harder to look in the mirror and say, oh, I don't like this about myself, or I want this to change. And the only person who can change you is you.
Well, and I want to say this, though, because when I said pain, what I don't want the listener to think is, oh, so this is going to be painful. Let me say this. Yeah. In the moment of recognition, that moment can be, what's a different word for pain? Because I don't want to say the word.
Discomfort.
Well, it was just uncomfortable place to recognize. But that, I don't want pain to be a deterrent. Sure. Like, because who wants pain? Oh, please let me walk into pain. Yeah. That's what I love, Copy Talk podcast girls. Yeah. That kill all my dreams right there. No, that's not what we're trying to do. It really isn't painful. The liberating piece comes very quickly. Outside of being uncomfortable. So I just wanted to encourage the listener in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Well, we're going to move on. So there's 2 more skills in this category of self-perception. The next one is called self-actualization. It's a mouthful. I'm sure I'll stutter more than once in this show. So my family won't be able to make fun of me again.
I'll make fun of you on the show. It's all right. Keep going.
So I'm not going to give you a reason to. That is my challenge today. But anywho, so self-actualization is really the pursuit of meaning in your life. So it's the willingness to try to improve yourself, engage in a pursuit of betterment, of doing what you want that brings you meaning in life. Okay. So I think about is where my lists are driven. Self-actualization is probably one of my highest scores in emotional intelligence, which we'll talk about in a moment. Why it might be too high and lead to not so good things. Because again, we want to kind of be around, the normal level when you have scores in this assessment. And so if they are too low, it tells you one thing. If they're too high, it tells you another. And so, but this really, self-actualization allows you to really gauge, where am I currently in my life compared to the dreams I had as a kid? Compared to some of the goals I had set, that where I wanted to be. And I know a lot of people say, oh, at 30, I want to be here. And at 40, I want to be here, and it's oftentimes the disappointments in life because we often miss some of the goals or life didn't turn out the way we wanted or had hoped that are the biggest challenges to get over. Because kind of our list of what we started out as a young 20-something, and when we hit our 40s, it looks a little different.
So would you
some
say
things
this
look better,
is,
some things look worse?
Would you say this is where somebody is going to identify regrets?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I would say so. Okay. It's not the only one, but it's a big one.
Okay.
So if you are low on the self-actualization level, here's how you know. You have a lot of regret in your life. Okay. You live a lot in the past. You are very disappointed with where you are right now. You would have a very low score. Because why? Because your pursuit of meaning is low. You're like, well, how did I end up here? Yeah. How did my life turn out this way? Why am I in this profession that I never wanted to be in? Why am I not married? Or why did I get divorced? Or, it's across all aspects of life.
I mean, who hasn't asked themselves that question at one time or another? How did I get here?
How did I get here?
This isn't what I planned.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on the low end, that's how you know if you have a lower self-actualization, because you feel like you've missed the mark a bit. If you're too high, you're one of those people, and I've been guilty of this. You're one of those people that are always trying to self-improve and always have the latest self-help book or the latest list going, or you have a very entrepreneur spirit. Okay. You're always taking on more, which then leads to things like burnout, leads things to like exhaustion, discontentment, right? Because it's really hard for, I think, people who are a little overkill on this. They're never content. It's never good enough. And so that's how you kind of tell where you are on this spectrum. And, as a I think we balance each other out a little bit on here.
You and I are polar opposites in this one.
I
am not entrepreneurial in spirit. I hate self-help books. I do. I hate them. That's just, I'm outing myself. I am not.
And what I find funny, since we work together, so I make you do these performance assessments twice a year.
But I like the.
You mean the part that I'm like, well, what do you want to work on this year, or what do you want to continue to improve in? And you're like, no.
Well, actually, you know what? Hold on.
You do improve, but you don't like to write it down. Like, you don't like to necessarily set it.
Well, I think. I wouldn't. Well, I think the question that I don't like the most from you, ma'am, is not like, where do you think you can improve, or what is more, so what in other areas would you like to grow in? Yeah. And my first thought is, are you kidding me? Like, I'm happy. I'm busy. I'm good. Like
last night, even we had a text. I was like, you should sell all your farm eggs at the office.
And I'm like,
she's
I
like,
don't have time for that. I give these away. Side note, picked up 30 yesterday. 30 eggs in one day.
I better be getting some in my house.
I do. I have a carton for you. But my point, like, that is a perfect example of how different we are. Because in my mind, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I know where I can improve. Like, I have no problem with identifying that.
Yeah.
But what are some new things you'd like to try this year? No. It's more, the question goes back to you. Shannon, what new adventures are you going to take me on this year? Like
a podcast. Make me do. I know. But this has been a fun one.
That's good, because you throw me into the deep end of the pool. That's just how
sometimes.
This friendship. Oh, no. Yeah. Deep end.
You're the one who attached your wagon to mine long ago.
Sink or swim,
really
sister.
Oh, I remember where we were.
It's all my fault. Said that. It's all my fault. You're right. Okay, so
we
back
also
to it.
talked
Okay.
Self-actualization. If you are high on the scale, you also some of the downside of that is you also can put pressure on those around you, unneeded pressure. So you have said that about me, and my husband has said that about me, and my kids have said that about me. So I'm trying to be more mindful of it. I'm trying to dial that down for myself too, where yes, for me, it's in my DNA to pick challenging goals and to work to hit them. That's just who I am. Yeah. That's my components of I think of my personality, not so much my emotional intelligence, but where it can help empower me with emotional intelligence, and maybe some of you relate out there, is not being so driven that, like I said, you're never content. It's never good enough. You constantly find yourself burning out. And that's to me, that's my indicator, my kind of temperature check, is the level of burnout I feel.
Have you ever been burned out?
I like them burn out like once a quarter. So
you hide it well.
You know, that's because of my next one. I'm really not emotionally self-aware. So they go hand in hand.
We're fleshing this out for all the listeners. Yeah. This is how this
So I feel like I do well at self-actualization, but then we'll get to the next one, and you kill me on that one because I suck at that one.
You can't. Justin would be so mad if he hears you say that.
Oh, you're not allowed to talk like that.
I know.
He's so right, that's self-actualization. Yeah. So I think hopefully you all get a good gauge, just that pursuit of meaning, self-improvement, trying to accomplish your dreams and goals. And some of our dreams and goals we can't accomplish on our own. It takes a larger force of destiny to help open doors and give us favor and opportunity that we can't do by our own hands. But I do feel, and we've talked about our faith oftentimes on this show, there are certain things that, yes, I have desires in my heart and goals that I have, but I can't make happen. That it's going to take, the Lord opening doors that only He can open.
Sure. Absolutely.
And my job is just to stay ready and to stay with options in front of me and not get too bogged down in any one area. And what I also try to do that I've found that really helps my plan in this area work is not constantly, but I'm often taking self-assessments of like, what am I wasting time on? For me, family is so important. So family is usually my absolutely number one of like, am I scheduling too many meetings after a certain time of day?
Sure.
Am I having too many work dinners away from home? Like those kind of things, and doing whatever I need to do to shift or deprioritize things that don't matter as much. Yeah. Because if we're working so hard on things that don't matter, we feel...
Well, you're spinning your wheels at that point.
And we feel discontent. We feel like, what am I doing? Like, how did I end up here?
On the hamster wheel, right? You're not getting anywhere, but you're spinning your wheels. Okay, I'm going to ask you a pointed question before we move on. For somebody who's listening and they would say, I think I probably score pretty low in this. And I know you're higher on this one, so this may be a trickier question, but for somebody who's low, and maybe they're just not interested in taking the assessment, but they would like to hear, what would you suggest as for somebody who, just a small part of their plan, if they were low in self-actualization, what could they do to help that area of their life?
I think one of the key questions, and I use this a lot in my counseling sessions with people, is because as people grow up, they kind of lose their childlike heart. And so one of the questions I always ask people is trying to get them back to a time where they were more sure of themselves. Okay. We're trying to get them back to a time where they had excitement and joy And what did that look like? And what made you excited? What qualities? It's not so much about profession, but what qualities were in your life at that time? Okay. What did you do that just brought you joy? Did you ride a bike a lot? Did you spend time with horses? Did you, those kind of things? Because we still have the same heart. It's aged a bit, but we still have that same spirit on the inside. And so I encourage people to really start to get in touch with that child that's still in there.
Yeah.
What makes you laugh? Like, adding laughter into your life really helps. So I think that is very helpful because it gets you back to a place where, I remember when I used to feel passionate about something. I remember when I used to have just fun. And it wasn't about a paycheck, and it wasn't about, all of my adulting, And so
you have to adult a lot.
On one of my lists, which are also prayer cards in my life, but is to become more childlike and to have a more childlike heart, because I think that does help. So that's what I would say. Shut up.
I love your list. I love your list. I love your list. Your lists help, especially when your lists involve like bestie trips. That we have not taken for 2021.
2021
by the way,
has been not so good. I know. We need to work on that.
Well, I've tried, but I'm just, you know what? Somebody keeps backing out, but I don't know who that somebody would be.
I know.
I'm just
it
kidding.
Would be me. I do want to.
I wanted to call you out on the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm
don't
feisty
worry. I know. It's all the F words you used on the way here.
I am feisty this morning. It was a rough morning.
Well, let's go. That's actually a great transition.
Good segue.
Into the final self-perception skill. And the final one is called emotional self-awareness. So, and it's very self-explanatory of what you would think it would be, but it's a little sneaky.
Yeah.
When you look under the hood, it's a little sneaky. And here's why. Because it includes this ability to really differentiate between the subtleties in our emotions. So, am I feeling anger or contempt? Am I feeling sadness or dread? Okay. Did your pen just fall apart? Oh.
No. What are you talking?
I think that's mine. Mine just fell apart because I'm clicking it too much. That's all right. I don't need it anyways.
Don't edit that out.
But it's also understanding the cause of the emotions and the impact they have on others.
Okay.
So it has kind of some fangs to it as we look under the hood, which this is one of my lowest scores. I think because growing up as a very alpha A-type personality, I really didn't like them. I still don't really like emotion. Like, I don't like drama. I don't like I don't like conflict. But I know. Well, between you and my husband, I'm like, okay, well, emotion is a part of my life. If I want to spend time with people I love. But I've tried to, in the past, before I was a more healthy version, I would try to repress as much emotion as I could, which obviously is not a healthy way of living because they don't go away. They just start to add up and seep out in different ways. And so for me, my plan of becoming more emotionally intelligent, really I had to work on becoming more aware of what emotions were, what I was feeling, why I was feeling it, and really learn this whole new language that I was trying to avoid for decades. Why are you laughing?
I don't like emotion. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm drama. I was this morning.
Well, no. But when you get triggered, you tend to...
Oh, I'm expressive emotionally, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence the floor of your closet when you go home today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
But, so I think you are very strong in this area. I feel like you have always been...
It's definitely one of my higher scores.
It is. Because you know what you feel. And honestly, I know that the Lord has used you in my life to help draw that out in me. What's going on? Why do you feel that? Like, just stay here for a second. Like, let's talk about it. Because I'm always like, let's just move on. When I feel sad, I always want to blame external sources like the barometric pressure or whatever.
Always the barometric
pressure. It's never
pressure.
internal. Like, I don't like my internal world. I don't know why. It just makes me uncomfortable of emotion.
Well, you do typically. It's fine. Let's just move past.
Yeah.
You know, but that's also...
It builds up. And then... it doesn't go away, and then I burn out, or I break down, or I go through, a nervous breakdown or something, which I never will do again. But I got very close at one point in my 30s where it was very real of like, okay, if I don't deal with this, I'm not going to be here much longer. Like that's the level it took. So I've tried to, over the years, get better at this. And what's interesting, because I've taken this assessment twice, a few years back and just recently, and my score in this area has gone down, which makes me believe I've gotten a little lazy again. Like I'm defaulted to not want to deal with emotion. When I took it a few years back, I was in counseling every week. I was tackling these emotions. I was getting better and more skilled at recognizing the subtleties and the differences and the impact and, all those things. And then lately, because again, I healed from a lot of the stuff I had struggled through. I'm not in, and I don't need weekly counseling right now. But I've gotten a little bit more default, I found. So I'm not recognizing things as well. I'm not as attuned on the internal world.
So what would you say for the listener who's either too high or too low? What are the implications if you're too because I don't too high and too low. We keep using that, and I want to remind people that you don't want to be too high and you don't want to be too low.
Don't. So too high. Here's how you know out there if you're too high. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You overanalyze, overthink everything. You put too much weight on emotion. Okay. So sometimes people get stuck in decision making a lot if they're too high on the scale because they just can't resolve the emotion they feel inside. Decision making, which we'll get to because it's one of the skills that we eventually will get to in a few weeks. But if you're only using emotion and you're not using facts, you could really make some bad decisions. We've talked about this on some of our financial shows, is that if you're making financial decisions out of your emotions, it will be a train wreck because it will go against all the logic, all the statistics, all the facts that would save you from catastrophic results. And so I feel that this one especially has a very financial heartbeat as well as a relational heartbeat. So,
sorry, Matt.
But what do you think for you? What do you think? Because, this is a good score for you, but also when you get triggered, being more emotionally attuned, how does that impact you? Like, what does that look like for you when you get triggered?
Listener, this is what's called a bait. Just so you don't let her think. Don't let her make you think that she does not know the answer to this question. But that's all right. You go there. I am completely mature the entire time with all of my emotions, no matter what happens or triggers me, Shannon. No, so like this morning, I was triggered, and I this is good. This is good for my self-actualization right now. I have no idea, but I can vomit of the mouth, if you will, with my emotions. And so, which did occur this morning. Okay,
but you're so good at getting it out in the moment. I do feel like you don't repress many things, which is good. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. We're just trying to meet in the middle of what is healthy and what is not.
Well, let's be very transparent, though. This morning, while I might have vomited of the mouth, what made it occur was a wardrobe malfunction. And as I was getting ready we have to think a lot more about the wardrobe now that we're on video. And I had put on this dress and, I'm going to just put on some lotion. And when the lotion gets clogged at the tip? Yeah. And so when you hit it and it squirts like sideways, that's what happened. And the whole side of me is covered in lotion. And so that was lovely, but not something, if we weren't on video, I don't want it. Yeah. Not really. But, and so that moment I ran upstairs and I've got to change clothes and I can't find anything to wear. I'm totally selling myself.
And then you added pressure because now it's about
I have to get somewhere on time because you cannot be late with Shannon Ross.
No, you
ever.
Can't.
And I was 2 minutes late, but you cannot be late. And I was running to try to find an outfit. And unfortunately, due to age and, just things we can't help.
Sure.
Suddenly things in my closet didn't quite fit the way they used to. And so this led to like a breakdown of sorts, of which my husband is like, babe, you're fine. It's great. I'm like, whatever. And there was, fluff words and all of that. But so this morning I was extremely emotionally self-aware, except on a very high scale, and it all came pouring out.
Well, and actually, that's a good segue into what's next week. So self-perception wraps up today. Next week, we're going to tackle the next category, which is self-expression. So your emotional expression is actually going to be the first thing we tackle next week.
Oh, fantastic.
And so you're going to see, and we're, like we said, with all of these skills, they're like knobs on a soundboard. Mm-hmm. If you are highly emotional in your self-awareness, which you experience a lot of emotion, and if you're high on your emotional expression, you can see how that could be potentially a little loaded, a little dangerous, just because when you have emotions, you will tend to, like you said, vomit at the mouth, and they will take you over.
Yeah.
And so, again, we're all in this area of just saying, hey, what kind of tweaks can I make? Because these are all skills that we can adjust. They're all knobs that we can adjust up or down to be more capable in certain situations. We don't want to change or mask, or we want to be true to ourselves. Yeah. But if we're in a work meeting and something happens or whatever, and there are times where you need to dial it down. There's times when you need to dial it up. And so that's what we're here for. Yeah. And so that's what we're tackling.
Well, I can tell you that my emotional vomit of the mouth, this is just confession for the world to hear. It's probably never going to change when situations like this morning occurred, because I was in the safety of my home and nobody to witness it except my husband, except now of all of Copy Talk podcast listeners know my emotional outburst.
This is an authentic show.
That
so
is.
Just keeping it that
there's
way.
ladies
That's
out there
all
going,
good.
yes, I have done that too. Amen.
Today, this morning, before they listened. So tune in next week. It's always different.
There'll be something else, I'm sure.
So awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today,
everybody.
We're looking forward to next week. Join us
tell them the
again.
new exciting thing next
we
week.
are launching YouTube next week, which is huge for us.
Yes.
Come to our website, copytalkpodcast.com. If you want the assessment, if you want to sign up for our upcoming classes, let us know on the website. We're also on Instagram and Facebook.
Leave us a message.
To come.
Throwback
Absolutely.
Thursday. That's what we should ask. TBT. Somebody
TBT.
Send us a hashtag TBT.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.
This is intended for informational purposes only and not to be used as a primary basis for investment decisions. Consult your financial professional before making investment decisions. Shannon Ross is a registered representative and MBA of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse Financial offers securities and advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisories Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Shannon is CEO and managing financial partner of Lighthouse Financial. Cambridge and Lighthouse Financial are not affiliated.